Blood Money. Article by Anna von Reitz. Part 23. Additional issues for the International Court of Justice. Treaties and obligations. It stands that treaties are the highest law, and that the United States is committed to this principle, as evidenced by 1 Statute at Large 37. Therefore, there can be no disagreement or lack of performance with regard to matters of standing treaty owed to the people of any nation, and no ignorance of matrimonial treaties, that is, treaties sealed by the marriage of principal heirs in ages past, between the French Armorican chieftains and the tribal nations of the Americas. These alliances are in fact established in the blood and exist in every state of the Union. We are attaching a digital copy of the Declaration of Flag issued in 2017, which clears up a lot of misunderstandings and which was sent as a wet ink signed copy to all parties including the Vatican Chancery Court, the International Court of Justice, and the United Nations at that time. JPEGs of the date and signature pages are in the description box, making it a complete documentary record. Rumors are now circulating that the Western United States has been sold to China in an attempt to pay off U.S. debt to China. Need we say that the U.S. cannot sell what does not belong to it? Our money and our assets were employed in gaining the land and soil assets of those states, not the Holy Seas and not the Queen's either. Our seals were affixed to the paperwork too. It behooves the Vatican Chancery Court to intercede and move the responsibility for the debt where it belongs, and to void the sale. If we owe the Chinese anything, which is doubtful, we have the means to pay it and do not propose to sell them any of our land and soil. As of the last day of September 2020, all the territorial states in the western United States, including Alaska and Hawaii, were formally enrolled as states of the Union and taken out of territorial status by the roll call vote of the assembled states of the Union that were enrolled prior to the American Civil War. And as the attached documents prove, and this transmission also proves, we were not silent or acquiescing to the arrangements being made for us in any purported absence. Our claims to North America are not dependent on any petty commercial ventures occurring in the distant past. Our claims are based on the treaties of Trieste and Camlan. The Treaty of Trieste, Treaty of Three Lives, is also sometimes called the First Treaty. It set up the recognition of the three jurisdictions of law, air, land, and sea, and provided for the peaceful settlement of controversies arising in all three jurisdictions. This treaty was settled in France and established by a laying on of hands by the participants, which included my husband's ancestors and my ancestors too. The intent of the Treaty of Trieste was to prevent exactly the kind of usurpation of one jurisdiction over another that has occurred here and now, wherein the watery jurisdiction of the British monarch's domain has been enabled and allowed to slosh over the continental mass of many nations with no regard for law or treaty. The same can be said for the further allowance of the municipal air jurisdiction seeking to dominate both the land and the sea. My husband and I are both grandfathered into the Treaty of Trieste, and are here to enforce it in the sight of the Holy See, which has all the records necessary to confirm the lineage of the Irish and Scottish kings, the true kings of England, the true kings of France, and true kings of Spain, and the attendant Treaty of the Kings of Authority, which we are also heirs to. It is no secret to the Holy See that the violation of the holy vows of matrimony resulted in the severance of treaties merging the kingdoms of Ireland, Wales, Powys, England, and Gaul early in the 6th century. Gaul at that time already included the landmass of the United States as a Christian country and nation, thanks to the earlier intermarriage of Armorican chieftains, French Normans, with Native Americans. Our tribal people, the seafaring Armoricans, gave their name to this westerly continent, as can easily be seen. America is a British phonetic transliteration of Armorican, so it is readily admitted both by name and by history that this continent and the people on it are allied by blood with France long before any such affiliation claimed by England. The Treaty of Camlan provided that the lands of Powys and Wales were forever succeeded to the King of Gaul, his heirs, descendants, and assigns, his son Galeroy Dulac. It was signed and sealed in 540 A.D. in the presence of the Pope, and was seen as an important step forward for the Christianization and stabilization of the British Isles at the time. So we doubt that the Holy See has quite forgotten the French footholds that gained its safety and its entrance to the British Isles. It is precisely the enforcement of this Treaty of Camlan by William of Normandy and the backsliding of the British that caused the Norman Conquest, another part of history that is being conveniently ignored as if it never happened. For the interest and action of the Holy See and the United Nations and every instrumentality thereof, William of Normandy forever precluded the possibility of there ever being a true British monarch again, via the settlement of the Norman Conquest upon his death in 1087 A.D. William of Normandy scrupulously catalogued every scrap down to the single goat of the property assets of England, and upon his death he bequeathed separate kingdoms to his loyal barons as sovereigns in their own right. From that moment on, there were and have been many kings of England. In truth, it was the signature of those many kings appearing on the Magna Carta, only appearing to be French barons in France, that has given that document, the Magna Carta, the force of law. King John was deliberately given no land at all. His grandson, who signed the Magna Carta, became the overseer of the Pope's Commonwealth lands in England, and to this day that has been the source of all his descendants' claims to have any kingship at all in England or anywhere else. My husband and I are both heirs of all the treaties and treaties by marriage referenced above, inheritors of sovereignty resulting from the settlement of the Norman Conquest, and though we do not like to embarrass anyone, the failure to enforce the above referenced treaties and settlements has brought the entire world to the brink of economic and social collapse. Please observe that the Belchers in England, coat of arms, established as a sovereign coat of arms in England and a barony coat of arms in France, was and is part and parcel of the royal house of the King of Gaul, and closely related to the kings and princes of Aragon, which shares the unique vertical striped shield that was adapted to the use of the United States of America, our unincorporated federation of states. There can be no mistaking the relationships of these symbols and trademarks, nor the authority over land grants possessed by both the House of Aragon and the House of Dulac. Thus there is no right, rhyme, or reason why the Holy See should allow its overseers of the Commonwealth to presume upon the jurisdictions of the land and soil upheld by the Treaty of Trieste, the Treaty of Camlan, the Norman Conquest, the settlement of the Norman Conquest, the Magna Carta, the Supreme Declaration of Independence of the colonies of the United States of America, and our victories in no less than 2 world wars. We remind the Holy See that we have never sought war, but never been defeated in war of any kind in any jurisdiction. We are here demanding a complete review of these circumstances and their immediate correction. The sea must return to its natural bounds, and the land must be upheld. The jurisdiction of the air must be content with its own vast domain and administer it properly without complaint. For the representatives of the Holy See were also present and parties to the Treaty of Trieste. China must be properly advised that China was not dealing with the actual government of this country, and our land assets are not available to pay for the debts of the United States Municipal Corporation. We propose a complete fiscal audit of the transactions involved in the development of any purported debt owed to China, as there can be no actual debt accrued in a debt credit system. So far as we can observe, American labor paid for Chinese goods. The Chinese spent the blood money and now want to double dip and demand commodity asset payment too. The extent of any such alleged payment owed by this nation would be determined by the stipulated expenses allowed as a result of the exercise of our delegated powers. We also request and require the return of control of all our gold and silver and platinum and other precious metals assets, so that we can settle all and any valid debts we may have worldwide, and thus avoid any possible conflagration on our shores or anywhere else. By Anna Maria Reisinger, Fiduciary, the United States of America.